So about 2 months ago, I built my first PC. I already have a gaming laptop, which was pretty good for its time with like a 3060 and 32 gigs of RAM. But you usually have to replace the whole laptop every 2 to 3 years, which I purchased this laptop all the way back in 2023. So initially, this video was supposed to be one of those my first time building a PC videos with a high budget, but that was too generic, as you can tell. I actually ran into some problems that no amount of PC building tutorials could have prepared me for. And the solution to these problems were truly mind-boggling. So I decided to make this video. So before we start, I know at least one of y'all who clicked on this video has zero clue about building PCs. But don't worry, I'll try my best to explain the 3 most important parts to the PC. So let's go. First, the motherboard, a board that holds and connects every single part of your PC, or your PC won't work. Buttons you can plug into the board are the GPU, SSD, RAM, and power. The 3 main parts I'm going to go over are the GPU, CPU, and RAM. Starting with the CPU. Its main job is to do complicated tasks at a fast speed, but it can't do many tasks at the same time. It functions as like a brain of a computer, communicating to each part and performing complicated calculations. Meanwhile, on the other hand, you have the GPU, which does the exact opposite by doing a bunch of simple tasks, which is why it's used for rendering graphics, but also it's used for AI. So you can see that the CPU and GPU are quite different, but they have their own use cases. The next part we have is the RAM, or also known as random access memory. To break it down, let's say you have your favorite browser open and you decide to look at some RAM, as you realize your RAM will cost more than your CPU. As you can see, when adding more tabs, the PC is adding that to the RAM, so when you switch back to it, the tab instantly is there. RAM is also added to many PC parts like the GPU and the SSD. With that out of the way, let's begin the real video. I'll start off with some few tips. Number 1, always pre-wire. The number of times I was unplugging and plugging wires from the bottom of the motherboard left my fingers in pain. It was not fun. The main reason why I was unplugging and replugging was these stupid Lian fans that were powering off for some reason. A lot of people were saying on the internet that if you have less than 3 fans connected, then your fan headers on the motherboard should be good enough. That wasn't the case. I won't get into details, but essentially the fans didn't receive enough power, so I had to use the SATA power connection on the PCU. Alright, moving on to the next tip. Number 2, choose the right case. Now this kind of ties in with the previous tip because some cases are way easier to wire and build in than others. I unfortunately chose a pretty difficult case to build in. I chose the Lian 011 Mini V2, which has a angled bottom intake fan, which made it very difficult to wire from the bottom ports. So you had to remove the fan bracket each time that you want to wire from the bottom ports. Number 3. Always plug in a keyboard and mouse when booting up. After I finished building PC, all I had to do was just to boot it. What could go wrong? I feel like this depends on your motherboard, but for some reason, if you get this VGA 99 error, it's supposed to mean that your GPU is like not fully seated or not plugged in. I was positive that the GPU was plugged in, and if I kept pushing it in, the motherboard would just crack. So I turned towards the internet for help. So I stumbled across a post about this person telling their journey on fixing this problem. Like they wrote a whole story of them just troubleshooting. I wasn't trying to read all that, so I quickly scrolled down to the bottom. At the bottom, in all caps and bold letter, it basically stated that all they had to do was plug in a keyboard and mouse and it fixed the error. I followed these instructions, hoping that it will work. It didn't work. After that, I went on a 3-hour troubleshooting arc. And to quickly sum it up, the main reason why it took 3 hours is that the display port wasn't working. I kept trying to plug in the display port, hoping that it would just magically turn on, which wasn't the case since during that time I didn't know that the display port just didn't work. After that, I first plugged in the HDMI cable into the motherboard to check the BIOS, which it basically shows that everything was plugged in, except it showed that the GPU was plugged in, but it didn't have the name of the GPU. And eventually I decided to plug the HDMI to the GPU and it worked. I got something. But at that time, I didn't realize that the GPU was working due to the fact that my thought was that it was still using the integrated graphics from the motherboard. After talking to my friend, I realized I fixed the problem. The next day, with the realization that the PC would display with the GPU, I did all like the normal stuff like installing Windows. There was still a problem with the DisplayPort, which I found after switching from HDMI to DisplayPort and not getting a signal, and that's how I found out about that issue. Now the solution to this issue? I just swapped the heads around and then it started working. Anyways, that's really all I have to say. If you're a first-time PC builder, I hope these tips can save you some headaches. Wait, I forgot to give you guys the specs. I'll try to list the price that I paid for each part, not the current price. You could try to recreate my build, but it's going to cost you like way more due to the fact that RAM went up and then the GPU also went up. So it probably costs around $3,000 plus, which is a pretty steep price. Hopefully y'all guys found this video insightful and make the right decisions.